On this episode, I'm getting the shaft. This mighty powerful shaft, with its impressive girth and length, is from an F-250 Super Duty, and it's exactly not what I need. However, I did find the right one. Well, I at least found some parts anyhow. We'll make it work. But first, a little arts and crafts. I'm gonna have a little arts and crafts project today. I hate this place. Yes, that's a bad idea. Damn, still not high enough. Oh well. Well, I guess that's going to have to work, because I'm not, one, brave enough. Well, I'm stupid enough, but not brave enough to go any farther, so I guess this will have to work. Woo! That'll make pucker up. Where there's a will and some testosterone, there's a way. And my wife ain't home. And a prime reason why women live longer than men. Now to try to figure out how to do the back. So now that I got this portly gal airborne here, this will be much easier to work on and get underneath. from my old and decrepit bones. I've wanted to make some of these for, well, just about forever. So definitely is time to get them to use. That is definitely going to give me a lot better workroom there. Love that. Definitely worth the effort. And it only cost me about 50 bucks. Now that that part's done, let's wrap up a drive shaft. You know what that is? That is my windshield. After 6 months, it's finally here. Let's hope it's the right one this time. So, I went digging around on the old marketplace and I find myself a drive shaft for a crew cab Chevy truck. So it's got all the components I need to set the drive shaft up on that. Which it has the 4L60 input shaft. It's got the connecting joint here. I got myself a new bearing so I can use all this to mock up the shaft that I need, which hopefully isn't very painful. I've been kind of steered down the wrong direction in this whole drive shaft thing. You know, I stopped past the shop that I've used probably 6 times over the years and explained to him what I was doing. I needed, you know, a 2-piece shaft for a hearse and so on. But he didn't have any of the individual components to build a 3-piece shaft. And I didn't really know how to necessarily find one. You know, I did some sort of searches on the internet, but I didn't really know what I was looking for, so I didn't really get any good results. So after a couple trips to the junkyard and marketplace and everything else, I've obtained this guy, which of course now I find out I could probably buy one on Amazon for God's sakes for half the price, but that's a whole other thing. So today's project is we're going to work on putting this bad boy in here, or at least getting it mocked up. So while you weren't looking, I went ahead and finished up the exhaust. Didn't bother filming that because it was incredibly boring. So we're going to whack that center section out because clearly you can see it is going to hit. So I'm just going to trim the top portion out a little bit as a starting point and then mount my center mount there, which is probably going to be useless. But we can start with something, so good times, good times, good times. Hasn't rained in almost a day here, so at least it's drying up, so see if we can get some progress done today. I'll give me an excuse to use my new plasma cutter anyhow. And I gotta tell you, having these things on the blocks is super handy. Sure, it's death-defying, but it gives me enough room to actually get under there. And now that I can actually stand up here, that's gonna be a lot more pleasant. As long as it works anyhow. I'm hoping to have the floor in as quickly as possible. Once I get the drive shaft mocked up, then I can start knocking the floor out. Today is June 1st, so the clock is ticking for this thing to be on the road here. So I've got most of the little pieces, then I'm waiting for my gas tank to come in because I found out that the stock gas tank, which had nothing wrong with it, it no longer fits because of the air ride. So I guess I should have measured that before I put it all in. Not a big deal. Got that coming, and just some of the little loose ends. Need to get a wiring harness, and I think this thing is getting closer to driving than not driving anyhow. So let's see what this little guy will do. So let's see here. It's got some buttons here. Operation mode. See what that does. No idea. That says something. I think that's either the metric system or the imperial system. So I think we'll just turn this thing up as far as it'll go. So just like music, turn them to 11. Let's fire this up, see what happens. And yes, naturally I'm in flip-flops, so I get to do the fire dance, but this here is about a 1/16 of an inch, and this here is about 3/8 of an inch, or actually 1/4 of an inch, so we'll see what it'll cut. Oh yes. That's like a hot knife through butter. Literally. I like that a lot. Ooh, yeah. Gets so hot on my feet. Gotta stand back. Hell yeah. So now I got some more room here, so let me grab my shaft here, and well, drive shaft, not my, you know, whatever. So as you can see, where my center mount that I made is no longer where this is, so we can either shorten the drive shaft or move the center mount. I don't know, I'll play with that in a second here. So with that set in a preliminary spot here, let me look at the angles. So setting up a three-piece drive shaft is a little bit different, because essentially the first shaft is nothing more than an extension of the drive shaft. So looking at our handy protractor here, we are at 5.5 degrees. So that means the drive shaft should be at the same 5.5 degrees. So and the center mount that I have made is too tall, so we're not going to use it. I do have some wiggle room in my transmission mount, so maybe I'll bring that up, which will eat into the floor a little bit. Really shouldn't be a big deal. And that'll give me a little bit better clearance. I'm over in this area. So that right there is the same angle as my tail shaft, which is where it needs to be. And as you can see, it's going to hit the cross member. So let's see about bringing the tail shaft up first before I have a panic attack. So after monkeying around here a bit, I put a 1/2 inch spacer in the transmission. That gives me a better angle at the front joint. And then if I shorten the front drive shaft and put the bearing about right here, then that will give me a length that's usable, and my angle will clear my center section. So first bit is to chop that down. So I need to take and shorten this 7 inches. So I'm going to take and cut this weld here to pop the center out, and I'll change the bearing at the same time. Come back 7 inches, cut it about here, press it back together, and I'll let the drive shaft guy weld that up. Yeah, that wasn't working. Plan B. Yeah. It amazes me at how thin this actually is. It's actually like a 16 gauge sheet metal. But yet somehow holds all that torque. Amazing. I guess we'll use the press. So, got the end squished on there and just kind of sitting in there. So it's going to be welded still. I'll have the drive shaft guy knock that out. But I did find that if I take and flip over the mount that I made, once the bearing is pressed on there, and again, drive shaft dude will do that, it will actually be in the right spot. So now I'll just grab that measurement. And so after searching for hours on the YouTubes, looking for videos on how to set up a 3-piece drive shaft properly, I realized that there's actually very little on there to set it up. Although some of these videos are quite funny and entertaining, not necessarily as insightful as I need them to be for my application. So at this point, I'm just going to throw caution to the wind and guess it and make it up on my way go. Kind of an odd deal, because you've got drive shaft here, and then you have the rear end yoke over there, and it's actually not centered, so it's got to be sort of cockeyed a little bit. So the front drive shaft angle has to match the rear U-joint angle, and then the center angle will be straight from a side to side. Then of course the front U-joint will be stationary for up and down purposes, because it will mount there, but it will go up and down based on the rear end. Trying to sort all this out has been a little bit confusing. So after spending the last couple hours spinning my wheels on this, I've ended up shortening the front drive shaft as much as I can, to the point where the rear drive shaft is 60 inches, so I don't want to go any longer than that. But that'll actually give me a better mounting point here, gives me a better angle here, and I should clear the cross member there when it airs up. Yeah, I tell you, this whole drive shaft thing has become a little more complex than I anticipated. Now, when I originally was thinking, you know, oh yeah, drive shaft, how hard can it be? Well, you added an extra piece in there, it becomes a lot more complex apparently. So after being steered down the wrong path numerous times, yeah, my own fault for not doing probably enough research, like most things. Anyways, you know, a typical drive shaft is relatively simple to, you know, connect together. You know, you've got a front joint, a rear joint, as long as they match an angle, easy. But you add the second one, the second drive shaft, and things get just a little more bizarre. So yeah, my fault for not doing the correct research, although I was steered in the wrong direction. Not 100% my fault, but it is what it is. We're making progress here. So I'll get this sucker yanked out, taken over to the drive shaft guy tomorrow, and then once I get it back, I'll finalize my center bearing support, which shouldn't be that big of a deal at this point. But yeah, it's an interesting deal because this U-joint basically is static. It doesn't really move up and down because this is fixed here. Although this does have to be at a slight angle because the rear end yoke is not centered to the rear end. It's actually over to the side, so it'll be over maybe 2 degrees, which that will cancel out the front U-joint, and then the second U-joint angle, which will change of course with suspension travel, that will cancel out the up and down of the back U-joint. It's a whole lot of Mr. Wizard going on there. Anyways, I'm going to move the rear suspension here and see if I can get that to clear the drive shaft. If I got to notch it, not a big deal. So that should give me just about 1 inch of clearance, so that's going to be just perfect. So we'll see once the final piece is in, but I'm feeling pretty good about this now. And with the latest technological advances in cardboard, we're making a pattern. So it's got to go somewhere around here, I think. Maybe I'll make it in 2 pieces and then weld a tube in the center. I don't need tons of clearance as this really doesn't move, but still, a little room is better. So something like that will work. I can probably put it in the brake and just bend this up a little bit, possibly. I'm sure that's safe. That should work. Yep. Well, that's the start of something. What you doing, bro? Just needs a few blows of persuasion. With the precision of the government. I think I'll drill a couple holes in it and bolt it on, because something tells me if I weld it on there, I'll regret it. So that's just the way it goes. And in rare form, I got shoes on today. Don't get used to it. Alright, that'll work. Whew! Battery died just in time. That'll work. A couple of bolts. This thing ain't going nowhere. Well, hopefully. Not in my lifetime. Come on. What a pain in the ass. New seal. Piece of exhaust pipe. And great news, I got my drive shaft in today. It's all lengthened up, all new U-joints, all balanced, and ready to rock and roll. So let's go ahead and throw this sucker on there. I'm going to go ahead and throw a little red grease on there while we're at it on the inside. A little on the seal. I like this grease, it's nice and sticky. It's impossible to get off your hands, by the way. Alright, pushed all the way in. Bring it out about 1 inch. And now we're about ready to finalize the center mount here, so we'll get some measurements. We'll start chopping some stuff. So with it sitting here on my little stand there, taking my mighty protractor here, we are 3.84, which I swear this thing reads different every time I use it. 3.79, 3.56. So we are actually just about perfect. I'm not going to get too excited about 1/10 of a degree, so I will leave this here and start building the mount to mount this. And I think I'm going to go ahead and just use piece of angle iron, cut it to fit, drill a couple holes, and weld it in place. So just using my cardboard template here, which apparently is too short, so I guess I'll make another one. Oh, fantastic. Hopefully I got more cardboard. All right, cardboard template 2.0. So I know this needs to be offset just a little bit, so I'm just going to kind of eyeball it a little bit where I think it should go, just so I can get kind of an idea of where this thing's going to land. And I can cut my angle iron appropriately. I think that will work. Alright, that there is a good starting point. So now it's just a matter of marking this, cutting the ends off, and then I'll drill the holes once it's mounted. So that way I know everything lines up right, and I got to line up with the rear axle too. So, but good starting point. Alright, that'll work. With the precision of NASA. Let's give this baby a try. Ah, yes, sound of my flip-flops. That is going to work fantastic. I think I will buzz it in right there, then I can put a couple shims under it as I need, and we'll be good to go. Alrighty, that is in permanently. Now I can drill the holes to mount the bearing. I think I will install the back half first, start aligning everything, and call it done. My sunflowers are starting to pop. These things are huge. Anyways, so now that I got that drive shaft in and preliminarily set up, actually I can probably see if this is gonna fit now. Oh yeah, plenty of room. Perfect. All right. So let's take and air up the rear suspension, check the angle on that, and see what we got to do. So with my front angle at 4.7, drive shaft at 4.4, which is acceptable, and the rear end should be right about the same. So it's got to come up just a smidge. So luckily this rear end setup from the Jimenez brothers is adjustable. So let me give that a tweak. Metric reason. So with my jack under there, pick it up just a tad. We can now recheck it. And we are right where we want to be, 4.435. And then our drive shaft, which we're trying to match to, we are 4.4, so we're perfectly in spec. Now, time to throw some grease on there, tighten those bolts up, and drop another drive shaft. All in a day's work, right? A very hot day. Alright, with everything locked in place back there, gonna throw a little red grease on the shaft here. Just because, you know, I'll forget to ever grease this thing like I'm supposed to again, so this is probably the last time it ever gets done. Let's throw that shaft on there and see what happens. Alright, let's slide this baby in. These are actually indexed, so it only goes in one way, which it might take me the rest of the day to figure out which that way is. Oh, look, drive shaft guy actually marked it for me. There we are. Beautiful. And there we go. Got a new set of rings there. Lock those in. Snug them down. I'm not quite ready to go driving, but we are at least one step closer. Alright, so with that locked in place, the last thing to do is set the center bearing where it needs to stay. So there's a few things I could do. I could have it in a straight line from this joint to the back joint, So that way this angle will cancel out that angle since they're not centered, and have this one straight. Or I could leave this one straight with the bearing centered and have the angle taken up here. I don't think it makes a difference all that much, so I think I'm gonna go ahead and just leave this centered. Now there's been some talk that you got to have some movement in this joint to keep the grease going, so I think just the torque of the motor and all that stuff is going to be just fine, so I'm not going to get too excited about it. So let me center that up, drill it, make it permanent. But I think that's going to have to wait till later. The guy is here to pick up my 40 coupe. I sold it to a guy in Oklahoma, and he's here to get it. So I guess I'll call this the end of this project. Anyways, thanks for watching. We'll see you next time. And there she goes, walking out of my life forever. Sad to see it go. Can't keep them all. A little sad to see that one go, but hey, what's next?